fries and delicious, so you get Fryalicious.
Welcome to Experience Points, presented by our friends at Avtex, who transform customer experience through CX design and orchestration. On Experience Points, contestants earn points by answering customer experience questions and share their insights on how to make your interactions remarkable. Those points turn into dollars for the charity of their choosing. I'm Joey Coleman.
And I'm Dan Gingiss, and we'd love to introduce you to today's contestant.
Dennis Wakabayashi is the Vice President of CX Implementation at R.R. Donnelley, the world's 7th largest marketing solutions company. He's responsible for the strategy and execution of customer experience initiatives at Fortune 500 companies. And in May 2020, he was named a top CX expert of the decade and ranks among the top 150 CX influencers globally. He is also truly a great guy. Dennis, so happy to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to participate in this game show today, and I can't wait to hear what some of the questions are.
Well, we are excited to have you on Experience Points, Dennis. You know, here at Experience Points, our contestants get to play for their favorite charity or their favorite cause. We know you're playing for a real special organization today. Could you tell us a little bit about who you're playing for and why it's an important organization for you?
Thank you very much, Joey. I'm playing for the Children's Diabetes Foundation. My sister is very active in that community, my eldest sister. My younger sister passed away at a young age from children's diabetes, so it's an area of focus for our entire family, and I appreciate you and Dan giving us an opportunity to possibly donate some money to the cause.
Well, we're so sorry for the tragedy in your family, Dennis, but it's not possibly. We are going to donate some money to this great cause, and I know that you're going to do so well on this show and earn a ton of donations. So today we're going to play Fake or Fact.
In Fake or Fact, examine 3 similar experiences. Some are real, some are not. Your task is to determine the fake from the fact. Each experience correctly detected is worth 100 points. 3 correct answers will earn you 200 bonus points for a possible score of 500 points.
Are you ready to get started?
I'm feeling very ready. I'm wondering if I should get another computer and get to Googling over here on the side. We have a little more time, but okay, let's do this.
I like the creativity. You're committed to the cause. I love it.
Yeah, sorry, there's no phone a friend in this show. That's a different game show, Dennis. So
okay.
You can't use your friend Google. But hey, we have all heard the pharmaceutical advertisements. Ask your doctor about Balzapam or Zyrtec or some other name that is difficult to say and almost impossible to spell. Every brand needs to come up with names for their products and services, but sometimes these names seem to take on a life of their own. We're going to show you 3 potential prescription drug brand names for you to consider. I'm going to share all 3, and then you're going to decide which ones are real and which ones are fake. The 3 potential prescription brand names are Cubrellis, Aleptro, and Leonad. All right, let's start with that first one. Dennis, what do you think about Cubrellis? Is that real, or did we just make that one up?
I'm going to say that the fact that the Q does not have a U after it immediately signals to me that that's got to be, it's got to be a fact. Only a pharmaceutical company would match those letters together.
I love it. We're getting a spelling lesson here today from Dennis as well. Dennis, one thing we always tell our contestants here on Experience Point is trust your gut. And your gut said Cubrellis was real, and you are absolutely correct. Cubrellis is real. It regulates high blood pressure, and that is 100 points that you have already. And always good to get on the board early. Right now we know you're not going to be shut out today. I promised that was going to happen, and you've already earned some money. Let's move on to Aleptro. What do you think about that one?
Again, I'm going to say, because it starts with an O and ends with an O, I can see someone just jumping on that in a boardroom. So I'm going to go with fact.
It's kind of like those delicious chocolate Electro cookies, right? Those sandwich cookies.
Yes.
Yeah, the O, the beginning and the end. I love it. All right, you're going with fact for Electro. Let's see if he's right. You got it, my man. Electro is indeed fact. It helps manage depression. Okay, you are 2 for 2. Let's see if you can get them all 3 right and get those bonus points. The third name is Leonad.
I'm just going to go with that good old-fashioned multiple choice statistical probability of, I'm going to say that one is fake, just because the first 2 were real.
All right, so even though Joey warned you that they could all be fact or all be fake, he thinks that we're not going to pull that one on him and we're going to have a mix. Let's see if he's correct. And Leonad is indeed fake. It is actually my given name backwards. Daniel backwards is Leonad. Dennis, you did not fall for that. Great job. Very, very exciting.
You know, it's really fun to make fun of these names, but the reality is when it comes to naming your brand or naming a product, having a name that people can spell, having a name that people can say is really important. Can you speak a little bit to the importance of coming up with the right brand name before you roll it out into the marketplace and how that influences the customer experience?
Well, that's a lot of questions all at once, Joey. But I would just say, you know, we live in a digital world where terms are essential to the algorithms. It's very difficult to come up with a name. So I always reflect on some advice I got from the creative director over there at McDonald's, where he said over the course of time of marketing and advertising, it becomes subsequently more and more difficult to come up with something fresh. So he always liked the idea of mashing up 2 words that the public would understand, like fries and delicious, so you get fry-alicious. And I just felt like that was sort of the epitome of what we have to do today as building brands. But ultimately, the value of a brand and the customer experience comes from the people inside the brand working with the people outside the brand together, and ultimately that defines the value of any term we use.
I know in the pharmaceutical world there are rules against this, and so there's a lot of reasons why they have such funky names. So even if we talk about some B2B businesses, I think there's 2 things that strike me as odd. The first is when the name has absolutely nothing to do with what they do, right? It's just some random word. It's like they threw a dart at the alphabet and just put some letters together. And I think that makes it very difficult because you want to at least have some sense about what the company does. Obviously, names are very important. We talked before we got live here that you often have your name mispronounced. I do as well, so I'm familiar with that. Talk to us about just the importance of taking the brand name and the fact that that name really permeates the entire customer experience.
When it comes to naming, it really falls into empty vessel and full vessel. So an empty vessel would be something like the word Vario, and a full vessel would be Dunkin' Donuts. So each has its own opportunity to build the rapport and the relationship with the customer in different ways. Empty vessels seem to be more commonplace these days because of the algorithms, but at the end of the day, these brands and these terms are really just the representation of the commitment and the love and care that the employee experience delivers for the customer experience. And those 2 things, I think teamwork, empathy for each other, empathy for brands, empathy for the product or service, everyone working together collaboratively is what ultimately leads to the growth and value.
Oh, I love it, Dennis. You know, that analogy of an empty vessel or a full vessel really resonated with me. And I think lots of times when we're coming up with names, whether that's for a company or a product or a service, we want to be able to tell a story around that name. And you're right, a name that is less descriptive gives more opportunity to tell the story than maybe a name that is specifically descriptive. And obviously a brand can evolve over time. I'd love to come back to, if we could, this idea that lots of times it's an afterthought or somebody does the name without thinking through the implications. specifically as it relates to word of mouth. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know a brand in the world that doesn't hope its customers are talking about them. Could you speak about some of the things you can do as a business to get your customers to talk about you, specifically as it relates to the name or the words that you use or the stories that you tell around your brand?
Well, that's interesting. So I'm working with a brand now that has an empty vessel name, and they have a core purpose that's beneficial to the environment. And what we've done is, I think it makes sense to take whatever the term is, you have to put it in the context of the channel that it'll go in. So your B2B message in LinkedIn will look very different than your B2C message in Instagram. Your audiences will be different. And so I think it's incumbent on leaders of marketing of all kinds to listen to the voice of the customer in those channels, tailor the message of the brand to fit well within the conversation happening in those channels, and always to stay relevant and consistent and honest. So I really like brands who make less promises and tell more stories of success or even failure in those channels. So at the end of the day, I think what's different from the old way we used to do branding, where we would have broadcasting, I think you have special needs in each channel that are essential to making a brand relevant and becoming word of mouth. I think Zappos did a really great job at proving this case study out.
Joey, let's take a look at how Dennis did playing fake or fact.
Well, Dan, in this game, correct answers are worth 100 points. And Dennis answered 3 questions correctly, which means he earned 300 points. Dennis also earned a bonus of 200 points for getting every question in fake or fact correct. These points convert into dollars, which means Dennis earned a $500 donation to the Children's Diabetes Foundation. Congratulations, Dennis.
Thank you, guys. Awesome.
This concludes this episode of Experience Points. Check out more games with Dennis and our other celebrity contestants, although not all of them made the top 50 CX leaders of the decade list. But check them out at experiencepointsgame.com. Again, that URL is experiencepointsgame.com. We'll see you soon for more examples of remarkable experiences here on Experience Points, brought to you by Avtex.
You know, I think that one of the interesting things that we're seeing is how experiences are really taking lead in crafting the perception of a brand, right? So I found it fascinating, this empty, full conversation. I wanted to get your take on whether you think it's harder to have a name and then create a brand around that from scratch, or take something that's existing that has some bias and really move the needle in terms of how people perceive that brand.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think it's easier to start with the name and create something from scratch than it is to try to transform an existing brand with not only its biases in the marketplace with customers and consumers, but even biases with employees. I think many times the greatest hindrance to future success is previous success. And so we want to keep doing the things that we're doing. We want to keep rendering the experiences that we want to render. When consumers have moved on, perhaps, and are looking for or have different expectations, but yet the organization is still stuck on delivering their experiences the way they've done for the last 10 years. And it may be a slow, painful struggle, but they need to change, versus a new organization which can define their customer experience around their brand and what they want that brand experience to be, and deliver it from day one, and not have to worry about retrenching, retraining, reorienting, recommunicating what they want their brand to be.